Hello! Today we are going to be talking about the predictive programming that is in the movie Zootopia 2 and how it relates to the reptilians. I know that it sounds silly, but if you haven't learned by now, movies, especially Disney movies, tend to have a lot of symbolism and predictive programming that give us messages so that we can be prepared for certain events to take place just among humanity. If you don't know what predictive programming is, I made an entire video explaining what predictive programming is, but essentially it is when the elites or the Illuminati, whoever you want to call them, they put certain messages in movies before they initiate the actual thing to happen. So for example, The Simpsons. So many people used to think that The Simpsons predicted things, but they never predicted anything. They just knew what was going to happen because they are also part of the Illuminati, or at least the creator, maybe not like the actual family. This is essentially their way of getting permission from the rest of humanity to continue doing the things that they do to us. And it sort of helps condition us to accept the things that happen. It's a bit of a conspiracy theory concept, but hey, I think the conspiracy theorists are batting a pretty higher average than the non-conspiracy theorists these days. My name is Catherine. I'm an energy healer, spiritual coach, and nurse practitioner. If you want to work with me one-on-one, you can go to my website at catherineglassman.com, or you can email me at hello@catherineglassman.com. Just one quick announcement. I made a recent video about my time at the Monroe Institute, and let me tell you, feeling the drastic difference from like such a high vibing place like the Monroe Institute and then coming back here in Central Texas, nothing against Central Texas, but it has been a challenge for me, and it has made me it solidified the fact that I definitely need to move away. So I just wanted to share that with you because it is a struggle. Whether you're a spiritual person or a psychic or a remote viewer or whatever you want to call yourself, if you're on the spiritual path, it doesn't matter. Life is just going to be challenging. And being spiritual makes it a little bit more challenging in some ways because you teach yourself and you experience certain things that help you look at life and your life differently. And going to the Monroe Institute definitely, I think it does that for everybody, but it definitely has done that for me. And it's just so wild to feel, it's like coming out of a dream and then coming back to reality and realizing the reality that you've created. So that's just a little bit about me. I just wanted to share that with you. I don't know. I just feel like I have grown a relationship with you guys, and I just want to take you along the ride with me. So yeah, I am not one to say that I know all the things. I am just going through my own journey and sharing it with you. So I appreciate you being here. Thank you. The fact that you're even watching, it tells me that like I have a little bit of support out there in the world. So thank you so much. I really am really happy to have you here. So back to Zootopia 2. Why did I even watch this movie? Well, okay, I do like Disney movies, but I like horror movies and I like action movies and I like sci-fi. I like all the movies, okay? And I like movies and I like music. I like entertainment. But a big reason why I like them is because I get messages from them. Either I will get a message from just the collective, right? Like the agendas that the elites are trying to push on humanity, or I will get a personal message just for me, and that pertains to my life, right? So when it comes to psychic abilities, we all have them, okay? This is nothing new. Extrasensory perceptions are just a part of the human condition. It's just whether or not you believe in it or not, okay? And then just like the five senses, everyone's extrasensory perceptions are different. Some have a stronger sense in clairvoyance, some in hearing things, some in just a feeling. Okay, so everyone is unique, but everyone's got them. Me, I get guidance and messages through movies and music and entertainment in general. I think a lot of people can if they were to just open up their mind about it. So anyway, so my partner and I were just sitting on the couch. We were looking for something to watch. It was our little movie date night, and we couldn't find anything. So we go on Disney Plus, and we're just kind of, moving through the movies. And he stops on Zootopia 2. He's like, "Have you ever seen Zootopia?" I was like, "No, I've never seen it." He's like, "It's pretty cute. You might like it." So we decided to watch the second one. I've never seen the first one he has, so we watched the second one. And okay, if you've never seen it, right, and as an adult, maybe you haven't, but if you have kids, I guess, it's about a squirrel and a rabbit that become odd friends, and they end up becoming like a police force for this city called Zootopia. And in Zootopia, there's a bunch of different animals that live, harmoniously together, basically. And that's just the gist of what I understand about the first one. I've never seen the first one, like I said. So with the second one, it's about them as a dynamic duo in the police force, and they're fighting crime and whatever, but they end up getting in trouble because they're just a little too much. But during one of their investigations, they saw that they found a snake skin. Now, apparently in Zootopia, snakes have been banned. Okay? They've been banned. They are on like another island, but there is a suspicion that there might be a small community of snakes living amongst Zootopia. Okay? And I'm just laughing because I'm a full-grown adult talking about a Disney movie, but I'll reel it in, don't worry. Because in Zootopia, it's primarily a mammal community, but there is a small community of reptiles that live in some marsh area that a lot of people don't go to. And there definitely aren't any snakes anywhere. Apparently, a snake did a bad thing at one point, like, killed a tortoise or something like that. And so since then, they've just been banned. Now, the rabbit in the dynamic duo found the snake skin, and she wanted to investigate it, but because they had recently got in trouble, they were not to do any investigations. But she started to do her own investigating and came across it's called YouTube. I don't know if an ewe is an animal, but it's called YouTube in the movie. Obviously, it's YouTube. And she comes across a beaver, and it's a podcast. And this beaver is definitely painted out to be a conspiracy theorist. And it's really funny because when the beaver's talking about the snakes and how she suspects that snakes are coming back, there's like a little bar on the side where you can chat. Like the community that's, watching the podcast for the beaver can chat, and there's 0 chats for like 9 years. It's just really funny because I can relate to this beaver, right? Like, at least I have a little bit of a following, but I just find it to be funny. I just can relate. So obviously she's my favorite character in the movie, but she talks about how there was a bad thing that happened with snakes in the past, goes about the history and how she suspects that the snakes are coming back. Okay. Now, of course, the rabbit saw snakeskin, and she's kind of thinking that maybe that might be a possibility, but no one is listening to her. So eventually, a snake does come back and tries to steal some journal and ends up sort of getting framed for hurting another animal of some sort and takes off on the run, but lets the rabbit know that they were framed and that the snake wants to prove that they were framed. So the snake takes off, and the rabbit and the fox take after the snake as well. So then they end up becoming fugitives because they're assisting the snake. And I guess I should have said, This is going to be full of spoiler alerts. So if you want to watch the movie and you don't want me to ruin it for you, then you can stop watching now. But I'm going to literally just tell you about the whole movie because I want to explain some of the symbolism that I found in it. Now, because the rabbit believes the snake, she is going to try to help expose whatever truth that the snake is trying to expose. So she has to go underground because she is a wanted fugitive at this point. So she ends up getting help from like the mob, and it's like a mole. It's so funny. And the mole leads her to the beaver, who is the conspiracy theorist. And the beaver ends up helping them track down the snake. And I guess I'll just cut to the chase now because I can just keep going. But in the end, they learn that the snakes were actually framed for this murder that took place. So there is a family, a very wealthy family, and they're lynxes, right? Like the cats. Very wealthy family that were credited with creating these weather walls that encircle the entire city of Zootopia so that all of the animals can coexist together. Well, it turns out that it was actually a snake that invented that technology. And the snake was looking for an investor, so they looked for the lynx because they were very wealthy. The lynx ended up stealing that technology and framed the snakes, banning them from Zootopia. So why does this even matter for us today? Well, I believe that this movie is actually warning us about the disclosure of reptilians, and not only the disclosure of reptilians existing on planet Earth currently right now, but also the exposure of the fact that the reptilians have always been on planet Earth first. Of course, because this is Disney is well involved with the reptilians, along with a lot of entertainment, moguls. I believe that they are trying to put a positive spin on this concept, because if you think about it, most humans are naturally scared of snakes, and they kind of feel a little different about reptiles. Like they're not as warm to reptiles and snakes as they are to mammals. Most people get really excited to see a lion or a tiger or a bear, and dogs and cats, of course. But not a lot of people are excited to see snakes or lizards or alligators, things like that, right? And of course, there are a number of reasons for that, but a very large reason is biblical, because in the Bible, the snake obviously represents the devil, the serpent that was cursed by having its legs removed and forced to, crawl on its belly for the rest of its life. While a lot of people believe that the biblical story with the snake is actually talking about the reptilians, right? And there have been a lot of people, especially religious people, they tend to believe, they kind of, hold on to that. And so they just naturally don't like snakes, and they don't want to be around snakes just because of the biblical symbolism behind them. But what if, deep down as a human, there is a resistance to snakes and reptiles, not because of the Bible, but because of the inner knowing that you may have about the existence of reptilians? So there are those who theorize, like channelers and remote viewers and things like that, that believe that in all of the galactic wars that have happened in the universe, among different species, right? So there are different alien species out there that we all know, like the mantis beings, okay? And, like Sasquatch, right? Which is just an interdimensional being. There are some that are spider-like, right? Like the arachnoid species. And because of the galactic wars that took place, and the fact that we have galactic DNA, which means that we have originated from different galactic species in previous lifetimes. What if our previous lifetimes we ended up interacting with a species that may have not been that kind to us at that time and made us bring that trauma back into our human life, making us irrationally scared and fearful towards certain animals, certain insects, right? Certain reptiles. So, some believe if you just have a crazy irrational fear of spiders, it's a possibility that you had a past life where you were part of some war that had something to do with the arachnoid species, okay? I know it sounds crazy, it sounds really out there, but hey, if you're here and if you have considered that maybe you are a starseed yourself, then this might be something worth considering. And so what if your natural inclination to not like snakes isn't because it's biblical and it isn't because they're, slithery and all that? Maybe it's deeper than that. Now, we know currently we are in the middle of disclosure, or at least we're in the beginning of it. There are a lot of people that are seeing things in the sky. They're seeing UFOs like way more than people have ever seen before. I have seen one. I've seen a very large one in Sedona, and I made a video about that too. And there was no denying that for me. I tried to rationalize it away, and I just couldn't. And now people are considering that aliens might be real. Now we've got the Epstein files that have been released, and we're finding out that celebrities and politicians are literally eating children. This is going to lead us to the discovery that these politicians and these celebrities, they're not just regular humans eating other humans. They are reptilians. And reptilians, reptilian shapeshifters, reptilian influence, it's on a spectrum, okay? The spectrum is very similar to being demonically possessed, okay? I've talked about this before, but basically with, like in like a horror movie about like demonic possession, which is real, demonic is a pretty broad term when really you can be possessed by almost, maybe not anything, but basically that's anything that's energetic and interdimensional and really just means you harm, okay? I mean, you can also be influenced and sort of possessed by angels and beings that mean you well as well. But of course, we don't talk about that because that usually yields positive results. But being possessed in general is on a spectrum. If you watch horror movies, there's always some sort of initiation or some sort of invitation. So the invitation is usually going to be some sort of occult object or like a tool of divination. It's usually going to be like a Ouija board, right? Or moving into a house where rituals took place, things like that. And then systematically, one by one, it escalates after that. Then it turns into like a little bit of a haunting, and then the haunting gets worse, and then the family dynamic starts to really break down, and then it leads to full-on possession, okay? The reptilians do the exact same thing. You can have a reptilian influence in your life without it being like a full-on, shapeshifter, okay? Because they are interdimensional beings. So they can come in the form of just an energy, just being around you. They can come in the form of being an energy attached to a person. And when you interact with the person, they actually have a reptilian entity attached to them that's sort of influencing them. And if you continue to entertain this reptilian energy, you give it strength, and eventually it can just full on take over. Of course, you have to give it permission, but that's just the way it is. And if that relationship is strong enough, then you might actually see them shapeshift into a reptilian. And then, of course, there are the actual physical reptilians who can also shapeshift. So it's a whole spectrum. So it's not just one thing over another. This is why you have people that will interact with people and just see, like if they're a little bit more sensitive, or if they have like psychic abilities themselves, they might see the reptilian entity kind of hovering around somebody, or you might actually see one just full on shift into a reptilian right before your very eyes. And they just be like an actual reptilian, like standing in front of you. Okay. I believe that the elites know that this is coming, and they're trying to get ahead of it by trying to shift the culture so that it's more readily acceptable by painting snakes and reptiles in a more positive light. And when it comes to this movie, Zootopia, if you think about it, they're pointing to the fact that the reptilians were inhabiting planet Earth before humans. And of course, that's a whole theory in itself, which is something that I have meditated to, and I do believe that that's the case. Just from what I've seen, I tend to, go within and meditate and channel and remote view and whatever you want to call it, because I want to know the truth. And that's just my personality. I want to see it for myself because I don't want to be told what the truth is. Now, if I hear a piece of information and it resonates, then okay, I might accept that into a belief system, but most of the time I want to see it for myself. And so that's what I've seen, is that humans were created and our DNA was spliced from primates and extraterrestrial beings. I don't believe in evolution, that we just evolved, into humans. I just don't believe that. But I also don't believe in creation from the literal sense of the Bible either. I do believe that there is some symbolism within the story of Adam and Eve. I believe there's symbolism when it comes to like the masculine and the feminine and things like that, but that's about it. And anyway, at the Monroe Institute, I got to meet Joe McMonagle, which if you don't know who he is a famous remote viewer for the U.S. Army Intelligence. And he was the very first person to be recruited into the Stargate project as their remote viewer. And some people in my group, because a lot of us were like starstruck, right? Because we're all familiar with who he is. And he came in, and of course we just started bombarding him with questions. And as soon as we started talking about reptilians, he quickly changed the subject. But what he kept saying though, is that he believes that humans are the aliens. He is on the record saying that. He's even on the Sean Ryan podcast. He's on the record saying, I believe humans are the aliens. What if Joe McMonagle has also seen that the reptilians have been here first, among other species, but it was primarily the reptilians, hence the dinosaurs, right? Just another hint, okay? Now, I do want to point out a couple of pieces of symbolism that I found within the movie. First of all, when you look up the symbolism of what a rabbit stands for, rabbits stand for like being clever, being playful, and being intelligent. Foxes are known for also being clever, but being very cunning and sort of mischievous. And the two characters' personalities definitely show that, okay? Now, when you look up the symbolism of a lynx, they are known as the keeper of secrets, which in the movie, they kept the secret that they stole the idea from the snakes. Okay. I didn't look up the symbolism of snakes, though, interestingly enough. I want to say that it's probably a more darker, well, I don't know, actually, just judging from like the Bible and things like that, but I did not look that up specifically. Now, there is one point where the conspiracy theorist Beaver is bringing them down where the reptiles have a secret hidden layer. And this layer is at the bottom of a shipwreck. The symbolism of a shipwreck is hidden knowledge that is waiting to be rediscovered. Okay? And it doesn't stop there. They go into this layer and they eventually meet this what is it called? It's like a basilisk lizard, I think. And his name is Jesus. Okay? And the beaver warns them, like, hey, now if they offer you food, you have to take it because it's a sign of disrespect if you don't take it. So Jesus, this guy who apparently knows where the snakes are and knows, about it, they approach him and he says, before I answer any of your questions, you have to eat first. And he throws like a bowl of grub, okay, like insects, to them. And they have to eat it before he'll answer any questions. And so the rabbit and the fox like both eat one and it's disgusting and whatever. Well, it turns out that there is a biblical symbolism in the Bible for grub. And it symbolizes humility. Now, this lizard is a basilisk lizard. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. But it's also known as the Jesus Christ lizard because they can run on water. Okay, and in the movie, he ends up running on water. So I made that connection at some point. But it's interesting that this rabbit and this fox are going into a place where something is to be rediscovered. And they end up going to Jesus for the answer, right? Jesus hands them a bowl in which they need to show their humility before he'll answer any questions. Okay, there's a lot of symbolism, I'm telling you. So they eat the grub and then he ends up cracking a joke like, hey, they actually ate it, guys. So it was just a funny thing. But there is symbolism to be found. So anyway, the Jesus lizard is the one that tells them that the snakes were actually framed and driven out and that the land is just going to take over even more of the reptiles and they're going to be basically just driven out of like being homeless. Now, the theory, of course, if you are familiar with the reptilians at all, is that humans were gifted planet Earth and the reptilians were ordered off the planet. So a lot of them did leave, but a lot of them stayed and they were driven underground. And so I think within the next few years, I don't know, maybe like the next 5 years perhaps, we're going to learn that the reptilians have been here this whole time and that this planet was actually theirs first. But again, I think that Disney is putting a positive spin on it because it's in their best interest. But do I believe that the reptilians have been framed and they have, it's just all accusations and it's all wrong? No, I don't believe that. I believe that the majority of the reptilians, not all of them, but the majority of the reptilians don't like humans. And that makes sense. If you think about it, how would you feel if just a huge population of raccoons just took over your home to the point where you couldn't even live in it anymore and you had to leave, right? You probably would look at raccoons a little differently after that. You probably wouldn't like them very much. And then, of course, because the fact that they're raccoons, right? Humans hunt animals, right? They shoot them, they kill them, they just don't think of them as a higher life form. Well, this is how the reptilians view humans. They view humans as this lower life form that has taken over their home and drove them out. And so the majority of reptilians, they view us as a lower life form, one that is not as powerful, not as intelligent, and they really don't have that much respect for us. And it's important to know that this is just their nature. This is just how it is. I don't think that a lot of them mean to just kind of not like humans or think of us as like a lower life form. It just is the way that it is. It's just like humans. Like humans go hunting, right? And they do bad things to animals, and they eat animals, obviously, like just for fun and because for the flavor and things like that. They don't really have a lot of respect for animals for the most part. I'm not saying anyone in this community, of course, but the majority of humans, so it's not that they mean to be that way. It's just they were just conditioned that way. And I've made a video about how you can tell if you are interacting with a reptilian shapeshifter, or if you are interacting with somebody who has like a reptilian influence in their life. But basically, the way that you'll know is, first of all, there might just be a flat out, very obvious sign. Like they might shift in front of you. And sometimes it's not a full-on shift, like you see their whole form, but rather you see pieces. Like the most common is going to be the eyes. Like their eyes will shift into like slits that look like snake eyes just very quickly, and then you'll go back to normal. Or maybe you might see something with their tongue, like they'll just be like kind of slithery, like with a snake tongue kind of. Maybe they might like hiss at you, like they'll literally act like a snake kind of, or a reptile of some sort. But then there might be some other subtle signs, like you might see, you might feel like they are like a shell of a person. It's like they're wearing a costume, kind of. Or you might feel like they're not actually human. And that's the giveaway for me, is if I'm watching someone on TV or if I'm interacting with someone and I just feel like they're not human, that's my starting point. And then if I want to go a little bit deeper, then I might like take a picture and just like sit in meditation and see like what information I can get. And then usually I'll see like a reptile, like a bipedal reptile or something like that. But not everyone, obviously, but that's usually how it starts for me. But many times they will be very charming and charismatic, but manipulative. Like it's not going to be a pleasant interaction, but they are trying to make you believe that it is a pleasant interaction. They're just manipulating you. But for the most part, I feel like a lot of people can feel that, I think. And it's almost like they use your own words to try to glamour you. I don't know, it's weird. And sometimes, and I'm not saying that all people who are diagnosed with being a psychopath or a sociopath are reptilians, but they kind of behave in a similar way. Like it just feels fake. But of course, the ones that are really trying to get to you are usually going to be very hypersexual, and they might have a like an obsession with blood. Hence the Epstein files, them eating children, drinking blood, right? Yeah. However, I will say though that there are good reptilians. They are not the majority of reptilians because of the programming that they have on them. But there are some that have shifted into a higher frequency of unconditional love and don't mean any harm to humans, but also there are some that are fighting on behalf of humanity. these particular reptilians will have a demeanor that seems to be a little bit more mission driven. And again, like the personalities and of reptilians is on a spectrum as well. So you have ones that just despise humans and are basically just trying to take over humanity, which they have been very successful up until now. And, are preying on humans. And then you have ones that don't really care. They're just kind of doing their own thing. They are serving themselves. They're not serving like the reptilian agenda, but they're just serving themselves. And if it means taking advantage of a human, then it just is what it is. They're just caring for themselves. And maybe sometimes they might like a human here or there, but again, they're not one or the other. And then there is a select few that are actually fighting for humans to have their own rights, to not be preyed upon, and they're actually fighting on behalf of the children. Now, if you just so happen to be around a reptilian that is a shapeshifter, that is more on the good side, you will feel this essence of like a mission-driven individual. And when you're around them, not only do you feel like they're not really a shell of a person, but rather you feel kind of protected. Like you don't know why you feel safe with them, but you just feel safe. And, you think about the humans that you know now that are really friendly towards animals and insects, right? That they have no problem like not killing a spider or not killing a bee, but rather they'll like go help it and try to give it food or something like that, right? It's like that. Like sometimes animals and insects just know that you are not threatening and therefore they're just going to be kind of chill around you. And it's the same thing with reptilians, but towards humans. Like there aren't that many that are willing to help, but if they are there, then you will feel it. Now, a lot of reptilians have this ability to be able to kind of energetically influence your energy. So they can kind of make you feel, if they want to, they can make you feel insecure or have low self-esteem. Like it's just this energetic thing that they are able to do. If you allow it, obviously, like if you're good at protecting yourself energetically, then they can't do that. But if you're not protecting yourself that way, then they most certainly can have an influence on you in that way. But with the good reptilians, you're not going to feel that. You're not going to feel like they want you to feel bad about yourself or that they're kind of like playing a game with you. The good ones are cognizant about the fact that they can easily do that, and they put more effort into making sure that you energetically feel safe. So I will agree that Disney is trying to push a more positive light on the disclosure of the reptilians being here on planet Earth. And they're not entirely wrong. So it's important that we all keep that in mind, that not all reptilians are bad. We've got a long way to go, but there are plenty that are fighting on behalf of humanity. So we should be really, really grateful for that. And even though a lot of the reptilians have been really bad towards humans, we as humans still have a choice that we can make on whether or not we want to offer a peace offering to them. They underestimate our abilities to influence ourselves, influence the planet. They clearly have underestimated us for a long time up until this point. I think they all understand that we are significantly more powerful than we as humans realize. I think they understand that. So of course, we have to say no to all of the bad things that they are doing, but we can also offer a peace offering to those that don't mean any harm towards us. And who knows? Maybe it could start off small with us maybe being a little nicer to the snakes in our yard. we can take small baby steps in order to forge a positive relationship with the other species that live on this planet. Because it turns out we are no longer the ones that are on top of the food chain. Well, we haven't been for a while, but at least people are starting to learn that now. Anyway, I hope you liked the video. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Consider subscribing, and I will see you next time. Bye.